Letter 15. Of Clarissa, or the History of a Young Lady. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Bob Gillam, Betws Bledrws, Lampeter, Wales. Clarissa Harlowe by Samuel Richardson. Letter 15. Miss Howe to Miss Clarissa Harlowe, Friday, March the 3rd. I have both your letters at once. It is very unhappy, my dear, since your friends will have you marry, that a person of your merit should be addressed by a succession of worthless creatures who have nothing but their presumption for their excuse. That these presumers appear not in this very unworthy light to some of your friends is because their defects are not so striking to them as to others. And why? Shall I venture to tell you? Because they're nearer to their own standard. Modesty, after all, perhaps there is a concern in it, for how should they think that a niece or sister of theirs, I will not go higher, for fear of incurring your displeasure, should be an angel? But where indeed is the man to be found who has the least share of due diffidence, that dares look up to Miss Clarissa Harlowe with hope or with anything but wishes? Thus the bold and forward, not being sensible of their defects, aspire, while the modesty of the really worthy fills them with too much reverence to permit them to explain themselves. Hence your Sims, your Byrons, your Mullinges, your Wiries, the best of the herd, and your Soameses, in turn invade you. Wretches, that looking upon the rest of your family need not despair of succeeding in an alliance with it, but to you, what an inexcusable presumption! Yet I am afraid all opposition will be in vain. You will, I doubt, be sacrificed to this odious man. I know your family. There will be no resisting such baits as he has thrown out. Oh, my dear, my beloved friend, and are such charming qualities, is such exalted merit, to be sunk in such a marriage? You must not, your uncle tells your mother, dispute their authority. Authority! What a full word that is in the mouth of a narrow-minded person, who happened to be born 30 years before one. Of your uncles I speak. For as to the paternal authority, that ought to be sacred. But should not parents have reason for what they do? Wonder not, however, at your Belle's unsisterly behaviour in this affair. I have a particular to add to the inducements your insolent brother is governed by, which will account for all her driving. You have already owned that her outward eye was from the first struck with the figure and the dress of the man whom she pretends to despise, and who, 'tis certain, thoroughly despises her. But you have not told me that still she loves him of all men. Belle has a meanness in her very pride. That meanness rises with her pride, and goes hand in hand with it, and no one is so proud as Belle. She has owned her love, her uneasy days and sleepless nights, and her revenge grafted upon her love, to her favourite Betty Barnes, to lay herself in the power of her servant's tongue. Poor creature! But like little souls will find one another out, and mingle, as well as like great ones. This, however, she told the wench in strict confidence, and thus, by way of the female roundabout, as Lovelace has the sauciness on such another occasion to ridicule our sex, to call it, Betty, pleased to be thought worthy of a secret, and to have an opportunity of inveighing against Lovelace's perfidy, as she would have it to be, told it to one of her confidants. That confidant, with like injunctions of secrecy, to Miss Lloyd's Harriet, Harriet to Miss Lloyd to me, I to you, with leave to make of what you please of it. And now you will not wonder to find Miss Belle an implacable rival, rather than an affectionate sister, and will be able to account for the words witchcraft, siren, and such like thrown out against you, and for her driving on for a fixed day for sacrificing you to Solmes. In short, for her rudeness and violence of every kind. What a sweet revenge will she take as well upon Lovelace as upon you, if she can procure her rival sister to be married to the man that sister hates, and so prevent her having the man who she herself loves, whether she have hope of him or not, and whom she suspects her sister loves. Poisons and poignard have often been set to work by minds inflamed by disappointed love and actuated by revenge. Will you wonder, then, that the ties of relationship in such a case have no force, and that a sister forgets to be a sister? Now I know this to be her secret motive, the more grating to her, as her pride is concerned, to make her disavow it, and consider it joined with her former envy, and as strengthened by a brother who has such an ascendant over the whole family, and whose interest, slave to it as he always was, engaged him to ruin you with every one, both possessed of the ears of all your family, and having it as much in their power as in their will to misrepresent all you say, all you do. Such subject also as the recounter, and Lovelace's want of morals to expiation. Your whole family likewise avowedly attached to the odious man by means of the captivating proposals he has made them. When I consider all these things, I am full of apprehensions for you. Oh, my dear, how will you be able to maintain your ground? I am sure, alas, I am too sure, that they will subdue such a fine spirit as yours, unused to opposition, and tell it not in Gath, you must be Mrs. Solmes. Meantime, it is now easy, as you will observe, to guess from what quarter the report I mentioned to you in one of my former came, that the younger sister has robbed the elder of her lover, for Betty whispered it at the same time she whispered the rest, that neither Lovelace nor you had done honourably by their young mistress. How cruel, my dear, in you, to rob the poor Bella of the only lover she only had! And at the instant, too, that she is priding herself that now, at last, she should have it in her power, not only to gratify her own susceptibilities, but to give an example to the flirts of her sex, my worship's self in her eye, how to govern their man with a silken rein, and without a curb bridle. Upon the whole, I have now no doubt of their persevering in favour of the despicable Solmes, and of their dependence upon the gentleness of your temper, and the regard you have for their favour, and for your own reputation. And now I am more than ever convinced of the propriety of the advice I formerly gave you, to keep in your own hands the estate bequeathed to you by your grandfather. Had you done so, it would have procured you at least an outward respect from your brother and sister, which would have made them conceal the envy and ill will that now are bursting upon you from hearts so narrow. I must harp a little more upon this string. Do you not observe how much your brother's influence has overtopped yours, since he has got into fortune so considerable, and since you have given some of them an appetite to continue in themselves the possession of your estate, unless you comply with their terms? I know your dutiful, your laudable motives, and one would have thought that you might have trusted to a father who so dearly loved you. But had you been actually in possession of that estate, and living up to it and upon it, your youth protected from biting tongues by the company of your prudent Norton, as you had proposed, do you think that your brother, grudging it to you at the time as he did, and look upon it as his right as an only son, would have been practising upon it and aiming at it? I told you some time ago that I thought your trials but proportioned to your prudence. But you will be more than woman if you can extricate yourselves with honour, having such violent spirits and sordid minds in some, and such tyrannical and despotic wills in others to deal with. Indeed, all may be done, and the world be taught further to admire you for your blind duty and will-less resignation, if you can persuade yourself to be Mrs. Solmes. I am pleased with the instances you give me of Mr. Lovelace's benevolence to his own tenants, and with his little gift to your uncles. Mrs. Fortescue allows him to be the best of landlords. I might have told you that, had I thought it necessary to put you into some little conceit of him. He has qualities, in short, that may make him a tolerable creature on the other side of 50. But God help the poor woman to whose lot he shall fall till then. Women, I should say, perhaps, since he may break 6 hearts before that time. But to the point I was upon. Shall we not have reason to commend the tenant's grateful honesty, if we are told that with joy the poor man called out your uncle, and on the spot paid him in part of his debt those 2 guineas? But what shall we say of that landlord, who, though he knew the poor man to be quite destitute, could take it, and saying nothing, while Mr. Lovelace stayed as soon as he was gone, tell of it in praise of the poor fellow's honesty? Were this so, and were it not that landlord related to my dearest friend, how should I despise such a wretch? But perhaps the story is aggravated. Covetous peoples have every one's ill word, and so indeed they ought, because they are only solicitous to keep that which they prefer to every one's good one. Covetous indeed would they be who deserved neither, yet expected both. I long for your next letter. Continue to be as particular as possible. I can think of no other subject but what relates to you and to your affairs, for I am, and will ever be, most affectionately your own Anna Howe. End of Letter 15.